Hi there. We are at day 205 of our Through the New Testament in 1 year, and we are doing Acts 25 today, okay? Now, we could jump back and just... Okay. And he'd been 2 years, he'd been in the Herod's place, a little bit of liberties, but basically in jail, right? After 2 years, Felix, which liked him, received his successor, Porcius Festus. And because he had wished to do a favor for the Jews, Felix left Paul in prison. Right? The Jews are horrible people, right? Okay, so here we go. 3 days after Festus arrived in the province, he went up to Jerusalem from Caesarea. Then the chief priests and the leaders of the Jews presented their case against Paul to him, and they appealed, asking him to do them a favor against Paul, that he might summon him to Jerusalem. They were preparing an ambush along the road to kill him. Okay? However, Festus answered that Paul should be kept in Caesarea and that he himself was about to go there shortly. Therefore, he said, let the men of authority among you go down with me and accuse him, if there is any wrong in this man. When he had spent not more than 8 or 10 days among them, he went down to Caesarea. The next day, seated at the judge's bench, he commanded Paul to be brought in. When he arrived, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood around him and brought many serious charges that they were not able to prove. While Paul made a defense that neither against the Jewish law, nor against the temple, nor against Caesar have I sinned at all. Then Festus, wanting to do a favor for the Jews, replied to Paul, are you willing to go up to Jerusalem there to be tried before me on these charges? Paul said, I am standing at Caesar's tribunal, where I ought to be tried. I have done no wrong to the Jews, even as you can see very well. If then I am doing wrong, or have done anything deserving death, I do not refuse to die. But if there is nothing to what these men accuse me of, and no one can give me up on them, there you go, I appeal to Caesar. Okay, I see we're reading the wrong version here. Okay. Right. So, then Festus, when he had conferred with his council, answered, to Caesar you have appealed, to Caesar you shall go. See? He knew he was going to be killed on the road if he ever went back to Jerusalem, so because they already knew that. So he's appealing to Caesar, which will probably save his life, for a while anyway, right? Okay, before Agrippa and Bernice. Now when some days had passed, Agrippa the king and Bernice arrived at Caesarea and greeted Festus. And as they stayed there many days, Festus laid Paul's case before the king, saying, there is a man left by prisoner Felix, and when I was at Jerusalem, the chief priests and elders of them laid out their case against him, asking for a sentence of condemnation against him. I answered them that it was not the custom of the Romans to give up anyone before the accused met the accusers face to face and had an opportunity to make his defense concerning the charge laid against him. So when they came together here, I made no delay, but on the next day took my seat on the tribunal and ordered the man to be brought. When the accuser stood up, they brought no charge in his case, such evil as I suppose. Rather, they had certain points of dispute with him about their own religion and about a certain Jesus who was dead, but whom Paul asserted to be alive. Being at a loss how to investigate these questions, I asked whether he wanted to go to Jerusalem or, hold on. Okay, sorry. I had to sign for delivery, so where were we, right? Okay, we're 19. Rather, they had certain points to dispute him about their own religion and about a certain Jesus who was dead, but whom Paul asserted to be alive. But at a loss how to investigate these questions, I asked whether he wanted to go to Jerusalem and be tried there regarding them. But when Paul had appealed to be kept in custody for the decision of the emperor, I ordered him to be held until I could send him to Caesar. Then Agrippa said to Festus, I would like to hear the man myself tomorrow. He said, you will hear him. Right. So on the next day, Agrippa and Bernice came with great pomp and circumstance, right? And they entered the audience hall with the military tribunes and prominent men of the city. Then at the command of Festus, Paul was brought in. And Festus said, King Agrippa, and all who are present with us, you see this man about whom the whole Jewish people petitioned me, both in Jerusalem and here, shouting that he ought not to live any longer. But I found that he had done nothing deserving death. And as he himself appealed to the emperor, I decided to go ahead and send him. But I have nothing definite to write to my lord about him. Therefore, I have brought him before you all, and especially before you, King Agrippa, so that after we have examined him, I may have something to write. For it seems to me unreasonable in sending a prisoner not to indicate the charges against him. Right. So now he's in the audience with a whole bunch of important people. Right. We'll mark that complete. And tomorrow, it'll be great. Right. We're doing Acts 26 tomorrow. The whole chapter. That's cool. So, and we'll see what Paul says tomorrow. Good stuff, huh? Good stuff. Paul's getting the word out one way or another, isn't he? So, and the fact that the Jews hate him, they hated Jesus and killed Jesus, which means he's following right in his footsteps, and which means he's on the right path, right? Well, there you go. Give us a like if you think about it. Catch up on anything you miss. These are nice short videos and easy to catch up on. So, and tomorrow we'll continue. See you then.